So for Adobe Illustrator, to open it up, the program that we're going to icon to look for is the orange one with AI on the front of it. I'll give you a brief tour of the setup and the layout. You'll see everything looks very, very familiar from InDesign and Photoshop. First of all the tools that we're going to be used are usually on the left-hand side in your toolbox. All the palettes that we'll use are usually on the right-hand side, and list the little palettes off of here. By the way, if they're closed up, you see just little icons on the side, all you have to do is double-click on the black bar at the top of it. It'll open those up from there. Additionally, you can always click and drag off any of the palettes and work with them from there, or you can drag them back over to here and they'll dock within the palette dock. I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to create one really quickly for you. So File and New. Some of the things are the same for creating new files. So for instance, you can give it a name, and they're mainly looking for what's the height and width of the document that you're working on. For a vector-based editing software, there's no such thing as resolution. So when you get something printed, whatever the printing resolution of your printer is, that's usually what will come out from here. So you don't have to worry with, oh, is it a 72 dots per inch, or is it 100 or 1,000 dots per inch? In vector, there's no such thing as resolution. It doesn't matter what size it is. So all you have to do is worry with that. There are some rasterized effects you can do. We're not going to delve into that. But you can also change up your color mode between those two. For now, I'm just going to say OK. When working in Adobe Illustrator, this is kind of the same as working in InDesign. When you create a document, this is your artboard. So everything that you create must be on top of this artboard if you want it to print. Anything that's outside of the artboard in kind of this grayer area won't print, but you can still work outside of here. So think of this as kind of like your desktop. Things on the desktop are okay. Anything that's on the page, that's what's going to print up as well. Whenever you choose a different tool, also pay attention to your control panel at the top. It'll give you more options to work on from there. All cool? Like I said, everything is pretty much exactly the same with Photoshop and InDesign that we've worked with as well. If you can never find a palette, or if something's not opened on the right-hand side, you can always go under Window and choose the palette that you need to open up from here to work with today. For today, I'm just going to show you the basics of creating new shapes and also how to transform these new shapes, how to change their size and their rotation and their position onto a page. We're not going to delve too deep. We're going to just keep it very, very easy, very simple, and I'll show you how to work with the different through the different exercises for today. So first thing, to make a shape in Adobe Illustrator, look just below the T. There's a selection of shapes. Usually by default the rectangle is on top, but if you don't see it, you can click and hold, and this will give you a pop-out of the different shapes, types of pre-made shapes you can work with. By the way, if you click on the little outer tab here, it'll open up in its own little tab, and so you can quickly choose between these two. As with any of these other shapes, to use them, all you have to do is select a shape you want. So in this case, if I wanted a rectangle, click and drag, and you can see it gives you a blue bounding box until you let go of your mouse. And so now you've created a rectangle. Pretty simple, pretty boring. Here's the thing about creating a shape in Adobe Illustrator. There's two things you got to keep in mind. Every shape has a color, a fill color, and every shape has an outline color. This is called the stroke color. So whenever you create an object, to find the fill color, it's usually this button or little swatch down at the bottom of your toolbox. It's also, if you look at the far left-hand side of your control panel, there's these up here. And the stroke color is this one that's usually behind it. You can tell it's the stroke because it's got an outline for its swatch as well. Picking a color or changing a color, all you got to do is double-click on it, and it'll open up your color picker. From here, you can choose a color, and it'll change up the color from there. All simple? Have I lost everybody? Okay, awesome. Also, same way for changing the color of your stroke. Simply double-click on it, and you can change up the stroke from there as well. Now, I can't see the stroke very well. One thing I can do, if you need to zoom in, here's your magnifier tool. Click on it, and the more you click in, it'll zoom in. The keyboard shortcut is the same as in Photoshop, so Command plus and the minus sign. So Command minus will zoom out, Command plus sign will zoom back in. Handy little trick to keep in mind. If you ever need to, I'm going to zoom back out so we can see it. If you ever need to move an object around, there are two controllers that you can work with. There's a black arrow and a white arrow. The black arrow works the same as in Photoshop. So with it, you can click on an object, move it around, place it wherever you want on your desktop. The white arrow is a special type of selection tool. This is called your direct selection tool. With the white arrow, you can click on the individual points of a vector object and be able to move those around. So just like I showed you on the board, if you want to change up a vector object, you move the points around. Here's how you can do it. When you hover your mouse over a point, you see how there's a little dot at the right-hand side of your cursor? Clicking on it, you can then click and drag and move your point around and change up the shape that you're creating. So in other words, you're moving the vector point from wherever you want. You can also click on the line in between 2 points and you'll be able to move that entire line to move around there as well. The main thing to remember is the white arrow can only select individual points at a time. By the way, if you click on the center of it, it will select the whole thing, but this one allows you to click just one point. Black arrow will select the entire point or the entire object that you created from there as well. All right. Also, you'll notice with the black arrow selected, I've got a little bounding box going around the object that I've clicked on. That bounding box will let you know that the object is selected. If you click on the outer edge of the bounding box, you can resize an object, up or down. What would you hold down if you wanted to keep the proportions constrained in Photoshop? Shift key. That was on the test. Same thing as in Illustrator. Holding the shift will keep your proportions exactly equal. Without the shift, you can skew it, make it taller or skinnier from there. Last thing you can do with your black arrow selection tool, if you'll move your mouse slightly outside of the bounding box, you can see it's got a curved arrow to it. With it curved, you can click and drag, and that will adjust the rotation of the object that you're working with. So select it, click and drag, and curve from there. So that's how you can rotate it and scale an object once you've created it as well. All good? By the way, if you ever want to delete an object, simply select it, hit the delete key, and it's gone. Let me show you the other shapes tools that we're working with to create this one. Second one's the rounded rectangle tool. With it, just as the name would suggest, when you click and drag, it's going to create a rectangle but with rounded corners to the edges of it. By the way, if you need to make the stroke or the outline of an object much, much larger, look up at the very top right-hand side of your toolbox or your control panel. Right now it's set to the stroke width is 0.79 points. I can make it larger by choosing a predefined size. Let's make it large enough everybody can see. So there's an 18-point stroke. You can also click on it and use your up and down arrows and dial in a specific number that you want to from there. Same way, if I choose my black arrow, I can click, drag it around. Let's make another one. Click and drag, and the more you make, they'll be on top of one another from there. Here's another thing you should know about any of these shapes tools that we use. As long as you click and drag, you kind of get the preview of what the object will look like. When you let go, it makes the object. But, this is very important, if you just click once on the screen, it's going to bring up a specific option so you can type in this case, the height and the width of the rectangle. So let's say I needed one that was exactly 4 inches by 4 inches and has the corner radius. In other words, how round is the corner going to be? Let's say of 1/4 of an inch. So when I hit OK, it's going to create one right where I clicked that is that size and has that corner radius. So if I click again, let's say I needed one that was, say, 1 inch corner radius. Same size, say OK. Now you can see I've got a larger corner radius that I've created. Very simple, very easy. I'm going to use my selection tool, black arrow. If you click and drag, you can select multiple objects as long as they touch it and delete it away from there. Let's grab the ellipse tool. Ellipse tool, as the name would suggest, click and drag. You can create ovals and ellipses from here. What do you think you should hold down if you want a perfect circle?
Shift.
Very good. Shift key will give you that perfect circle. By the way, if you want a perfect square with the rectangle tool, Shift key as well. If I wanted to get rid of the stroke that I'm working with, let's say I don't want the blue stroke at all, select the blue stroke in front and then choose the little icon at the bottom right hand side of your toolbox that has the red slash going through it. This is the none or the null fill. With it selected, it won't turn it white, it'll just completely get rid of it altogether, and so now you've got just a filled in object by itself. Same way, if I click and drag, make any type of ovals that you want. If I just click once, it's going to ask me for a height and a width. So if I needed an ellipse that happened to be 5 inches wide and 9 inches tall, I can dial it in and get the exact same that I need from there. Let's get rid of these. Next tool is the Polygon tool. What is a polygon? This is art class, Mr. Ivy, not. When have you used polygons? Have you ever used a polygon? Okay. Polygon is simply a multiple-sided object. So if I click and drag, notice that this one works from the center outward. In this case, I've got a 6-sided polygon. I'm not even going to ask you what the name of a 6-sided polygon is. Does anybody know? Hexagon? Okay. So if I wanted to create a hexagon really quickly, this is just a great way of creating one from there. If I clicked once, I can give it a radius. So if I needed one to be exactly 5 inches wide, here's where I can change up the number of sides on my polygon. In this case, I've got 6, so if I needed, say, just a 3-sided polygon, what's a 3-sided polygon? Very good, awesome. I can dial it in and get one from there. Click again, say I needed, how about a 20-sided polygon? Say OK, I've got a 20-sided polygon automatically dialed in. I'll type in 10, you'll see why in just a second. Here's a great keyboard shortcut for you to know. I'm going to click and drag and start creating my shape. Now I'm going to use the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. Watch what will happen. If I hit the down arrow key, it's going to take away the number of sides. And all I'm doing is I'm still holding down my mouse. If I hit the up arrow key, it'll add sides to there. So this is kind of a great way to quickly add or remove sides to a polygon on the fly without having to bring up your options box from there. So just very quickly, click and drag, use your arrow keys, and you can dial it in from that way as well. Same options apply for the next shapes tool. This is the star tool. Star tool, like the name would suggest, makes stars. Click and drag. Very quickly you can make, usually by default, a 5-pointed star. If I was to click once, it's going to ask for 2 radiuses. The first radius is your, is your outer radius. So this is the points on the outside of it. Second radius is your inner radius. And these are the inside points that you would create. So if I wanted a star that had a radius of 1 inch and 0.25 inches, I can change up the number of points here. 8-pointed. So there's an 8-pointed star that has the 2 different radii from there. Same way with your polygon tool. If you use your up and down arrows, you can add points to a star or subtract points from a star very quickly, very easily on the fly. So very quickly make that starburst, make a sun. You've got it created. Grab your black arrow tool if you want to move it around or if you wanted to scale it and rotate it. You can see that as I select it, each of the little points has been lit up so you know where the vector points are on here. If I wanted to move any one of those points, this is where your white arrow comes in handy. Click on any one of those points and you can drag it out and then be able to manipulate your design that you've already created. By the way, if you click and drag with your white arrow over the points, you can select multiple points. Notice the ones that are selected are filled in while the ones that are not selected are hollow. You can then click on those points and drag those around. That'll change up your shape as well. And you'll get some funky results if you don't know what you're doing. So I accidentally selected, move those around, start creating things. But this is essentially all the computer is doing. It's looking at all the points and it's connecting the dots and filling in everything that's inside of it. So let's actually do something with what we've learned. The first thing I want you to do is to, on the Moodle page, is to download an exercise file. I'm not going to save this one. This exercise file will go through the different things that you can do with Adobe Illustrator. Some of the basic selections and creating basic shapes. There's 3 pages to it, so this one you're going to create basic shapes. I'll zoom in. For each one of these, I'm asking you to, in this case, create a rectangle, change up the fill color and the stroke color, and also the stroke size of it. Same way for you're creating a perfect circle, a star, polygon. So if I was to say a perfect circle, what would you hold down to make a perfect circle? Shift key, very good. If I don't say it otherwise, then you don't have to hold down the shift key. I'm not looking for a specific color in mind, so if I say green, just give me the closest green that you can find for the fill color or the stroke color that you've created. If I do give you a specific size, for instance, I'm asking for a 7-pointed star that has a radius of 1 and radius 2. For these, this is the one that you click just once to bring up your options box to type it in from there. All good? Any questions about the first exercise? Very simple. Second page. This one's going to allow you to practice rotating objects, scaling them. I also need to show you how to move and arrange an object. This is what I mean by arrangement. Whenever you create an object, so let's say I have a star, we'll make a star there. If I make another star, I'll make this one a red star. It's going to make it on top of the last star that I created. Now in Illustrator, you do have layers. I've got a layers palette that I'm working on, but in this case where everything's made on the same layer, so the layers really don't matter off to the right-hand side. But let's say I wanted my red star, I'll zoom in so we can see it, to be behind my white star. What I need to do is I need to adjust the arrangement, the stacking order that they're in. To do this, I'm going to select my red star, go up to Object, choose Arrange, so here's your arrangement, and from here you can bring it to the front or push it backwards. In my case, I'm going to send it backwards by 1 step. Since I sent it backwards, it's now behind the white star that I created first. So if I was to create another star, say on top of this one, I'll make this one blue. It's now on top of the white one. If I want to send it backwards, Object, Arrange, Send backwards. We'll only send it backwards 1 step. It's still on top of the red one, or I can send it all the way to the back, behind everything, all at once. All cool? So this is what you're going to do for this particular step. What I want you to do is to stack the coins in order of largest to smallest on top. So if I was to take the 25 cent, place it on top of here, it's being covered up. What I need to do is to select the larger coin and then do send backwards until it reaches the very back of that one as well. It's real simple, but this is just something that you do it so often, it's good to practice it and know how to do it from there. If I need to send something to the front, so in this case, I've got the smallest coin selected. I can do Arrange, bring it all the way to the front. Now it'll be definitely on top of everything that's on there. Easy breezy. I'll delete those away. Second one, this will allow you to practice rotating it, so just simply rotate it until it fits whatever gray area that's behind here. And remember to rotate, all you do is move your mouse outside of the bounding box until you see the curved arrows, and then you're in the rotation mode from there. The bottom one is going to allow you to practice moving and scaling objects. Take all of these. Have you ever played the game when you were probably a kid where you had to fit the things in the peg holes? Well, this one's a little bit more challenging. Rather than the pre-made sizes, you've got to move them and then stretch them out and get them to fit on top of here as well. Takes a little bit of practice to get it exactly right. Hold down the Shift key. But that's what I'm asking you to do here. Move them, scale them, stretch them to fit the appropriate sizes on here. Very last page. This one's practicing with the white arrow direct selection tool. With this one, zoom in, and then select whatever color object's on top of it, and practice clicking on the individual points and fixing the vector points until they're aligned. So in this case, the A is fixed. If you accidentally click on the center, it's going to move the whole thing. That's what I did. So be careful when you hover over it. Just click on that point there. Now for the curved objects, there's going to be something special in mind. Curved objects don't just have one point associated with them. In my case, so here's a point here, here's a point, and here's a point. So I know these points and this point are off. If I was to click on this point, it's going to give me two extra little points going off the side of it. Now I can click and drag into place. Same way for this one. Click on the center point and drag it into place. But let me tell you what these two extra little handles allow you to do. These are called, and this is, and these are called, and this would make it for a great bonus question, Bezier handles. B-E-Z-I-E-R. Bezier was a French mathematician that kind of came up with the mathematics behind curves. If I was to click on any one of these handle points, I can control the curve of my line. So now I can make it bend one way or the other based on the starting and stopping point. We won't get into actually making Bezier curves, but just so you know, you can click on any one of these points and be able to control the curve to put it back into place from here. So say for this one, I'm going to click right there, kind of moving back into place. This one's going to be the really fun one. You're actually going to have to figure out, oh boy, where do I have to move? Here's my Bezier handle right here. How can I move it back into place? The hardest part is actually learning to click right on the point, because if you don't, it's going to mess up just a little bit. And there's trial and error. This one's going to be off, so I'm going to bring that one down. I won't show you all how to do it. I'm going to let you all practice working from there. Any questions about the exercise? These 3 pages are what's going to be due today, but let me show you what the project is going to be that I hand out. This one was really fun. We actually did this in my Graphic Design 3 class, but I thought, man, my intro class would be able to do something like this. So I'm going to give it to y'all and see how well you'll do. Using just these basic shapes and the selection and moving tool techniques that I just taught you, I want you to come up with your own robot design. And I call this a Vectobot. I'm going to close this one out. Another file that you'll download from Moodle is the Vectobot AI file. By the way, AI is the extension for Adobe Illustrator. When you open it up, there's going to be a picture off to the left-hand side. And this is kind of a template that I want you to follow to create your own robot head in Illustrator. Each of these little points or little parts of the robot are made up of using only the Shapes tools in Illustrator. You can come up with whatever color design that you want it to be. You can change up the size of them, the placement of them. But I want you to use one of each of the templates to create your own robot head and practicing all the tools. So I'm going to zoom in. So for instance, the head is made up of what tool should I use to make the head? Polygon tool. So there's a polygon. Hey, there's a rectangle. There's a rounded rectangle, whichever one you want. Let's do the polygon tool. Since it's 5-sided, press the down arrow key. Here's another great little tip that'll come in handy. Before I let up on my mouse, hold down your space bar. With space bar held down, you can actually move around your object before committing it to a specific spot. So I can click and drag, and now make it about that size. I'll change up the color of it. Let's say I don't want it to have a stroke, so I've chosen the stroke color. Choose the null. Change the fill color. We'll make it blue. Oh, didn't hit OK. There we go. So now I've made it blue. So this will be the size, the base of the head that I want to create. I'll make it much bigger. And remember, anything you want to be printed has to be placed inside of your artboard. Next, I'm going to make an eye. So I'll choose this one. This eye is made up of essentially 2 different circles. You've got one big circle that's got an outline, stroked outline to it. So I'll choose my ellipse. In my case, I'll make it a dark blue. For the fill color, we'll do a light blue. Let's do a light green for the stroke. Click and drag, holding down my shift key. I'll size it up till it gets right about there. Now what I need to do is to adjust the size of my stroke. I can actually move it off to see what it looks like. So I've got it selected. Let's change the stroke at the top. We'll bump it up. It doesn't have to be 100% copied the same way. I'm okay and flexible with it, as long as the design is essentially the same. So I've now got it created. Let's make a little highlight on top of it. I'll choose white. Choose my circle again. And also I'm going to get rid of my stroke color since I know I just want a white circle. Click and drag. Now I've got my eyeball created. All I've got to do is select it. Let's drag it over, place it on top of here. Uh-oh. Seems I had my head selected whenever I changed up the color of it. No worries. I want to select him again. Change his color. Yeah, let's make him red from there. Now if I want to make a copy of my eyeball, all I've got to do is select both of the objects. I can click on one. If I hold down my shift key, remember in Adobe Photoshop, if you want to add on to a selection using your selection tools, you hold down your shift key to add. Same with here. So I've got it selected, shift, click on both of those. So now I've got both of those objects selected. Edit, I can make a copy of it. And I can go back up to edit and paste it. And so here's my copy pasted from there. Pretty simple, pretty cool. I'll show you the one that I've been working on. Can you give us about 15 more minutes? Okay. Let me show you the one that I created. And again, all you've got to do is use your basic shapes to make out a nose, mouth, ears, neck, and eye. This is the one that I created. I thought he was pretty cool. All I've used is the basic shapes to make out every portion of his head. The very last thing you're going to do is you're going to make up your own body for your robot that you're working with. Also in the instructions, I'm saying that you can use your pen tool and your pencil tool. Since I didn't go over it for today, we're going to go over it next class period, and we'll finish up this, this particular drawing next class period, and we'll extend it out from there. All good? Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'll turn your computers back over to you.